Welcome to Outbreak Brief, the podcast that takes you inside the world's most dangerous infections.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we are tracking a pathogen that, well, it quietly lurked in the shadows of the Amazon basin for nearly 7 decades. But recently, it suddenly shattered its geographical boundaries and it's carrying a devastating new threat for the unborn.
Yeah, just imagine going to the hospital with a crushing fever, enduring days of agonizing pain, and finally getting a clean bill of health, only for the exact same fever to violently return a few weeks later.
God, that sounds awful.
In 2024, over 10,000 people didn't have to imagine this. An explosion of a mysterious bone-crushing disease swept across regions that had never really seen it before.
And this wasn't just, a typical wave of tropical illness. We were seeing previously healthy young adults dying. But the part that really sent a chill through the global health community was this terrifying echo of the Zika virus.
Exactly. It was unprecedented.
We started seeing infected pregnant mothers passing the pathogen to their fetuses, resulting in stillbirths, miscarriages, and severe congenital abnormalities like microcephaly.
It was a profound shift. For the first time, we saw a virus doing things it had never been documented doing, and expanding at a pace that caught international surveillance completely off guard.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to understand exactly what the Oropouche virus is, why it's suddenly spreading with such ferocity right now, and most importantly, how you can protect yourself. So to start, what exactly are we dealing with here at a microscopic level?
Well, we are looking at the Oropouche virus, or OROV for short. Scientifically, it's classified as orthobunyavirus, which is a negative sense, single-stranded RNA virus.
I have to pause you there for a second. When you say negative sense, what does that actually mean for the person infected?
That's a great question. Think of negative sense RNA like a photographic negative. The cell can't read it or use it directly. So when the virus enters your body, it first has to manufacture a positive copy of its own genetic code before it can start hijacking your cellular machinery to build its army.
Right.
But the architecture of Oropouche's genome is what makes it so uniquely dangerous. Its genetic code isn't just one long string. It is physically segmented into 3 distinct parts: large, medium, and small.
So if we think of a virus trying to break into your cells like a thief, this segmented genome is essentially a 3-part lockpicking kit.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it.
Yeah.
If we look at the medium segment of that kit, it codes for something called a polyprotein. It's basically one massive, continuous block of raw material.
Got it.
The virus chops that block up to create these structural glycoproteins, specifically called G and GC, these proteins form unique tripod-like spikes on the surface of the virus.
And those spikes are the actual lockpicks.
Precisely. They scour the surface of your human cells until they find a very specific receptor called LRP1. Once the spike connects with LRP1, the lock clicks open, and the virus slips inside your cell.
But the lock-picking kit has a third piece, the small segment. So it's not just breaking in, it's actively disarming the security system.
Exactly. The small segment creates something called the NSS protein. As soon as the virus enters your cell, this NSS protein goes straight to work suppressing your innate immune system.
Wow.
Specifically, it actively blocks your body's type I interferon response. Interferon is the chemical alarm bell that your cells ring to tell the rest of your immune system that you are under attack.
So by cutting those alarm wires, the virus replicates in absolute silence.
Yes. Your body doesn't even know it's under attack until the viral load is massive, and by then, the damage is already well underway.
Knowing we have an invisible thief that cuts the alarm wires makes you wonder how long this thing has been breaking in without us noticing. And we actually have a very specific origin point for this, dating back to 1955.
We do. The year is 1955, in a village called Vega de Oropouche. It's nestled in Trinidad and Tobago, right near the Oropouche River. A charcoal worker falls violently ill with a fever. He's isolated, working in the dense forest. That blood sample taken from him becomes the first time humanity ever isolates this pathogen.
And for decades, it seemed contained to those dense forest regions. Over the next half-century, it caused over 30 epidemics and infected more than 500,000 people. But it was almost entirely confined to the Amazon basin. It was a localized problem.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the narrative of tropical medicine often focuses entirely on dengue or Zika.
Yeah, that's what makes the headlines.
But before the explosive dengue and Zika outbreaks of 2013 and 2015, Oropouche was actually the second most common arbovirus in all of South America.
Wait, really? The second most common?
Yes. It was just living in the shadows. Because the symptoms looked so identical to dengue, it was just constantly misdiagnosed. It was a ghost in the data, a silent epidemic hiding in plain sight for 70 years.
That perfectly explains the historical blind spot. But it doesn't explain the geography. To understand why it's breaking out of the Amazon now, we need to look at how it travels. When we talk about tropical fevers, we naturally point the finger at mosquitoes.
Naturally.
But the primary culprit driving the spread of Oropouche is something else entirely.
Right. While some mosquitoes, like Culex quincofasciatus, can carry it, the primary vector driving these massive urban outbreaks is a tiny biting midge called Culicoides pariensis. People often call them no-see-ums.
Because they're basically invisible.
Exactly. They are incredibly small, aggressive biters.
And here's where the life cycle gets really fascinating. The virus operates in two distinct cycles. First, you have the sylvatic cycle, which is the forest cycle.
Out in the jungle.
Right. Out there, the virus just quietly bounces back and forth between wild animals like three-toed sloths, non-human primates, wild birds, and the forest midges.
And the virus would happily stay in that loop forever. But then humans enter the forest. A forest worker gets bitten by an infected midge, contracts the virus, and walks back into a town or city.
And this triggers the urban cycle.
Yes. And here is the critical factor. In the city, humans are the sole amplifying host.
I want to clarify that. When you say we are the amplifying host, are we just a passive vehicle for it to hitch a ride, or is the virus actually doing something different once it gets inside us?
It's all about volume. When you become an amplifying host, it means the virus replicates so aggressively in your body that your blood viral load reaches staggering levels.
How high are we talking?
We were talking up to 10 million infectious doses per milliliter of blood.
That is terrifying.
Your blood is practically pulsing with the virus. So an entirely uninfected, naive midge can bite you in the city, drink a microscopic drop of that highly infectious blood, and instantly become a new carrier capable of infecting your neighbors.
That is a staggering viral load. And looking at the recent data, that massive presence in the body might explain some really scary new transmission routes.
Yes, it might.
The sources note the virus can be passed vertically from a pregnant mother to her fetus, but there's also a recent, very concerning detection of live replication-competent virus found in an infected patient's semen.
That's right.
So, could we be looking at something that becomes sexually transmitted the way Zika did?
It is a very real, very pressing concern. The scientific community is on high alert because viruses like Zika and Ebola have utilized that exact pathway to sustain outbreaks.
Right.
While sexual transmission of Oropouche hasn't been definitively confirmed in the broader population just yet, the presence of live virus in semen means the biological mechanism is there.
That adds an entirely new layer of anxiety to this, because if you were bitten by one of these infected midges, the clock starts ticking immediately. The incubation period is a tense 3 to 10 days.
And remember, these midges aren't breeding in clear standing water like the mosquitoes that carry dengue.
They have very specific, very messy environmental preferences.
Exactly. They love damp, rotting organic matter. We're talking banana stumps, cacao husks, discarded rotting fruit on the ground.
That specific breeding preference makes agricultural perimeters and farming communities highly dangerous zones. And it brings us to the crucial question of who faces the worst outcomes.
Well, pregnant women are at the absolute highest risk. The sheer tragedy of the vertical transmission we are seeing, fetal deaths, miscarriages, and congenital abnormalities like microcephaly makes infection during pregnancy a dire medical emergency.
The geographic risk has also totally shifted. It's no longer just forest workers deep in the Amazon.
No, not at all.
If you are traveling anywhere in the Amazon basin, if you are visiting Cuba or any region flagged with a level 2 travel health notice from the CDC, you are in the crosshairs.
And it's impossible to ignore the socioeconomic factors at play here. These outbreaks thrive in peri-urban areas where inadequate sanitation or uncollected fruit waste allows these midges to multiply by the millions.
Vulnerability is deeply tied to that environment. Now, if you are unlucky enough to be bitten, the acute phase of this disease is brutal. It is an abrupt, violent onset.
Your temperature skyrockets to 38 or 40 degrees Celsius. That's over 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh.
You're hit with severe chills, intense photophobia, where even normal room light feels agonizing to your eyes, and excruciating bone-deep muscle and joint pain, myalgia and arthralgia.
And then comes the cruelest twist of Oropouche. You suffer through that misery for a few days, the fever finally breaks, and you think, thank God, the worst is over.
But for up to 60% of patients, It's a lie.
A 60% relapse rate.
Yes. A few days or even a month later, the exact same brutal symptoms roar back with full force. That relapse is a signature hallmark of Oropouche.
But for a small percentage, it goes even further than that, doesn't it?
Sadly, yes.
Hmm.
For a very unlucky 4% of patients, the virus doesn't just stay in the blood, it actually breaches the central nervous system. This is the severe neuroinvasive progression.
What does that look like?
We see intense occipital pain right at the back of the head, profound lethargy, and neutral rigidity, which is a stiff neck indicating meningitis or encephalitis.
That is so dangerous.
Even more alarmingly, we are now documenting cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome appearing 10 to 11 days after the first symptoms. That's where the body's immune system gets confused and attacks its own nerves, leading to potential paralysis.
When those severe neuroinvasive symptoms hit, a patient's first instinct is going to be reaching for the strongest painkillers available. You're in absolute agony. So what does a doctor actually give you to fight this?
This is where it gets incredibly frustrating for medical professionals. There are absolutely no specific antivirals or medicines for Oropouche. Nothing. Treatment is strictly supportive. You get rest and intravenous hydration. That's all we can offer.
And there is a massive life or death warning attached to trying to manage that pain on your own, right?
Yes, there is. You must emphatically avoid taking aspirin or any NSAIDs like ibuprofen.
Because of the misdiagnosis risk you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Because Oropouche perfectly mimics the early symptoms of dengue fever. And because the two viruses co-circulate in the exact same geographic areas, you cannot risk it.
Because dengue affects the blood.
Right. If you actually have dengue and you take NSAIDs, the medication thins your blood, which can trigger fatal hemorrhagic bleeding. Acetaminophen is the only safe fever reducer you can take until dengue is definitively ruled out by a lab test.
So modern medicine's best answer right now is essentially just drink water and don't take aspirin. That is terrifying. What about the preventative side? Surely there is a vaccine in the arsenal.
The human arsenal is entirely empty. There is no approved vaccine for Oropouche fever.
But there is research happening.
Oh, the research pipeline is highly active. Scientists are intensely focused on those lock-picking spikes we talked about earlier, the GC and GN glycoproteins.
Okay.
There is a very promising candidate using a chimeric vesicular stomatitis virus, or VSV.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand that. When you say chimeric, are you saying they essentially hollowed out a different harmless virus to use as a Trojan horse?
That's exactly how it works. They take the harmless VSV virus, remove its dangerous parts, and paste the Oropouche spikes onto the outside.
And how is that working?
When injected into mice, it showed what we call sterilizing immunity, meaning it drastically reduced the viral load and prevented severe disease by teaching the immune system exactly what those lockpicks look like before the real virus ever shows up.
It's almost like borrowing blueprints. Scientists are looking at highly successful veterinary vaccines for related livestock viruses, like the Schmallenberg virus, to fast-track an Oropouche vaccine.
That's right. Those livestock viruses operate in a very similar way, so we don't have to start from scratch.
But until those vaccines clear clinical trials and are approved for human use, we have to rely entirely on prevention and infection control. And defending yourself requires deeply understanding the enemy.
It does. For example, standard mosquito nets, which have been the backbone of tropical disease prevention for decades, are practically useless against Oropouche.
Because the midges are so unbelievably small, only 3 millimeters wide. Trying to stop this with standard mosquito protocols is like trying to fence out a swarm of gnats with a chain link. They fly right through the holes in a regular net.
Exactly. You absolutely must use specially designed fine mesh bed nets. Furthermore, because these midges bite during the day, chemical repellents containing D-ic, or icaridin, combined with long clothing, are your best line of individual defense.
And at the public health level,
Environmental control is paramount. We have to clear out the rotting agricultural waste where they breed. It's the only way to stop the amplification cycle.
and the defense measures are extending beyond just avoiding bug bites. The FDA has actually stepped in regarding the blood supply.
Yes. Because the viral load in human blood is astronomically high during that acute infection phase, the FDA is suggesting a mandatory 4-week pause on blood donations for anyone recovering from the virus.
That makes sense.
It's a critical step to ensure this pathogen isn't accidentally transfused into a vulnerable or immunocompromised patient in a hospital setting.
If we pull back and look at the global map, you start to see why the FDA is getting involved. In 2024 and heading into 2025, the map practically exploded.
It really did.
We saw over 5,700 cases in the traditional Amazon region. But then the fire jumped. Over 3,700 cases in non-Amazonian states of Brazil, hundreds in Bolivia, and then a massive outbreak of over 600 cases in Cuba, a place where it had never been reported before.
And it didn't stop there. It was exported directly to the global north.
Right.
The CDC is actively tracking over 100 travel-related cases in the United States, mostly from people returning from Cuba. We are seeing cases imported into Canada and multiple countries across Europe.
We are watching in real time as Oropouche actively transitions from a neglected tropical disease to a serious international threat.
Which forces us to look to the future. With the virus spreading this fast, what exactly are the researchers racing against?
Yeah, what's the worst case scenario here?
This raises an important question about the genetic structure we discussed earlier. Remember that three-part segmented genome?
The large, medium, and small segments.
Right. If a human or an animal gets infected with two different strains of Oropouche at the exact same time, those viruses can swap segments inside the host cell.
Like shuffling a deck of cards.
Exactly. It's a process called viral reassortment. They shuffle the genetic deck. In an instant, they can create a novel, highly pathogenic superstrain with entirely new abilities to evade the immune system or cause more severe disease.
And has that happened?
We already have genetic evidence that novel reassortant strains are driving these recent, more severe outbreaks.
But the scientific community isn't helpless. They are hunting for new ways to fight back on a molecular level.
They are. Beyond vaccines, researchers are looking at highly targeted antivirals. For instance, there are compounds called acridones and even specific acids found in hops. Yes, the same plant used to brew beer.
Hops? Really?
Yes. These compounds specifically target the virus's cap-snatching mechanism. They chemically block a viral enzyme called an endonuclease, essentially stopping the virus from stealing the host cell's genetic machinery. If the virus can't snatch that cap, it can't replicate. It's a very promising avenue of research.
That is incredible. So we have a virus breaking out of the jungle, causing tragic congenital conditions, slipping right past our standard mosquito nets, and actively mutating as it spreads. So what does this all mean?
It means we have to fundamentally stop viewing the jungle as an isolated ecosystem. As aggressive deforestation, mining, and climate change relentlessly push human settlements deeper into untouched forests, we are acting as the physical bridge for sylvatic viruses to walk into the urban world.
Yeah.
Oropouche is a warning. It forces us to ask a chilling question. How many more unknown segmented viruses are quietly cycling in the blood of sloths in the forest canopy, just one genetic swap away from boarding an international flight?
Stay informed, stay prepared. This has been Outbreak Brief.